So there were so many horror movies this summer, we didn't even get to see all of them. So I reached out to some friends and a brother of a friend in one case. Our friend Andrew Carrillo's brother Matt sent over a little blurb about Don't Breathe, which that was from the director of the Evil Dead remake and got really great reviews. And he loved it. He said that it's a suspenseful ride that switches up the familiar breaking and entering tale by remixing it into something new and exciting. Without a proper handle on the writing, I don't think this movie would have stood out to me after leaving the theater. I found myself questioning my allegiance to the characters, unsure of where I would end up by the end, and that's a good thing. The studio wasn't lying. I find myself holding in a breath or two. It's that intense. So he loved this movie.
Yeah,
it sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, so first, big shout out and thank you to AC, our friend, because
into that.
Briefly going back to Don't Breathe, I actually got a chance to meet the guy that's making everybody hold their breath in the movie. What's his name?
Oh, the villain from
well, he was in Avatar,
yes,
and he was in Conan. Do you remember his name?
Yeah, the name is escaping me right now, but we'll just put it in a caption.
It's so terrible because I met him and I liked him a lot, and he was so nice. He let me take a picture with him and everything.
Nice.
But we were out at I think it was Governor's Island. I was doing a small signing with my comics and everything, or I was at a table. It was like at this art festival, and he was there, and and I was like, you really look like the guy that was the villain from Conan. Has anyone ever told you that? And it was like probably the only time in my life where it actually is the person that I'm talking about.
That's always funny.
And I have to say, he seems like a pretty good friend to the horror genre too, because Conan had a good mix.
Yeah, he was also in a Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah.
A Good Marriage.
But needless to say,
Stephen Lang.
Stephen, yes, thank you. Okay, so there's a better fan than I am. But he I think he's campaigning to be the new Cable, I think, in the Deadpool movie. So I think there's a little bit of a toss-up between him and some other people. But I'm rooting for you, Steve. I think you're going to be great. So
I felt like we couldn't talk about this summer without talking about that movie as well as another big release, which was Lights Out.
Yes. I only saw the trailer, but it definitely seemed creepy.
Yeah, no, I would have enjoyed seeing that in the theater. My friend Doug really didn't like it, and in fact,
he didn't like it.
No, at all. I mean, he said that of course it's based on the short film that went viral online, which was
I also did not see that, so
it
might not have
been
as viral as people thought it was.
No, it was much talked about, but it was a very creepy little simple thing. They kind of fleshed it out into a full movie. So Doug admitted it had a nice premise. He said the final twist ends on a surprisingly bleak note. Also, apparently, Alexander DePersia, the co-star, is very pretty to look at. So he specifically made his abs a bullet point. I guess those are worth watching. Yeah. But he said it was really cliche. There's a lot of jump scares, relying on loud screeching music. He said the monster was really derivative. It was like the monster from Mama, just your typical digital whatever. Yeah. Also, one thing that I've heard other people say that he criticized was a misrepresentation of mental illness. Now, I think mental illness is fertile ground.
Yeah, can't have any fun with anything anymore.
Yeah, so I was curious, but what he said was that in the movie they say that the mom suffers from depression, but it seems more like Maria Bello, the actress, plays her as clinically insane. She's a paranoid schizophrenic. She has these auditory and visual hallucinations. So maybe it was just the fact that it was inaccurate, the way that it portrayed the specific, what she was suffering from. But I really liked his final, very cutting summation. He said it's a predictable, tween-friendly version of the Babadook that has a few moments of promise but just isn't scary.
So, perhaps the best piece of media all summer that we both really enjoyed was
Stranger Things.
Exactly.
You
yes.
You have a Hawkins.
We are totally rocking our Hawkins 80s love.
Yep. And at FlameCon, I cosplayed as 11,
yes.
Which I was happy that people received well. There were a few other 11s there as well. I have to say, boxes of Eggo boxes make a great way to carry around stuff when you're doing cosplay.
Totally.
So my phone in there, my wallet, my keys, everything was in my Eggo box.
And
but yeah, no, I've been saying that I feel like it was the best movie of the summer.
And I would agree with you.
Yeah, it's just, what do you think it was about it that was so compelling?
Well, you know what's interesting is, I can only speak for myself, but I think from our generation, I just think that, I've heard other people refer to this online, and I really agree with it, is that growing up, first, Stranger Things did a great job at really encapsulating media of that time period, so like the clothes, the set design, the music,
great music choices.
And even some of the smaller things, like seeing them play Dungeons and Dragons, and then there were small little cutaway shots
on TV when
exactly
11 was flipping through channels.
And I think that those references really played the most to me, just because in the 80s we consumed media like that, so it really was like a total love letter to children that grew up and only knew the 80s through media. So I think that's what really impacted it with me, is because watching it I was just like, man, it was like, I don't know, it was just great, because it was like part E.T., part The Goonies, part, just 80s love all around.
Yeah, it definitely mashes up a lot of tropes and a lot of, movie references and whatnot. Very, very stylish, very high production values, really good writing. And I think that the acting all around was good, but what really made it was the kids. If you've been living under a rock and don't know what Stranger Things was all about, it's basically about a group of kids who one of their friends disappears, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it, and they stumble across this really strange girl named 11 with a crew cut who has these special powers and is tied into the mystery of what happened to their missing friend. I mean, the show was kind of billed as, oh look, Winona Ryder on TV, and she is really good on it. I mean, she does a great job as, the mother who's desperately searching for her son. But these kids were just fantastic.
Yeah.
And they were so well developed and so likable. I mean, I think my favorite was Dustin. He's just,
toothless.
Yeah, he's this toothless, fine-looking kid who's actually, like, the thing is, like, everybody underestimates him and puts him down, and he's so smart, he's so strong. He really kind of rallies his friends together and tries to be a leader and kind of steps up to the plate.
It's interesting because we watched the first episode together, and I have to say that, first, I was hooked by the title sequence, that synth music with that, like, Stephen King book cover.
It's like the score, the Teenage Dream-esque score is just fantastic.
Oh my god, I was like, you had me at ba-boop boop, whatever, however it started. But I really have to say that, watching it, I mean, I know his name is Dustin, but I call him Toothless, but I totally related to him, to, like, that whole, like, I'm gonna bring Nancy pizza with a girl that doesn't like me, but yet I still want to be accepted. And he was totally the backbone, of his group. And it's so interesting that everybody was like, Will, and I didn't really care about Will that much. Like, I mean,
you didn't really know him. You got to know the other boys because he was the missing one.
I mean, and I have to say aside from just the nostalgic aspect of it, I mean, like all the other stuff you mentioned about production values, but the story itself is really good. Like, it's a really good mystery, sci-fi.
Well, it was telling that each episode was a chapter, because they really tried to make it into this page-turning book.
And they really succeeded. And a lot of times there are things. There's things that are built up to have a hype, and that it doesn't always pay off. But this not only had the hype, but it paid off. So
I think what helped too was it felt a little bit like it came out of nowhere. I mean, people had been excited by the trailers and the advanced word, but there wasn't a lot known about it. It wasn't this super anticipated thing necessarily, at least not by the general public.
Yeah.
And then it just became such a phenomenon that even non-horror, non-genre fans got really into it.
Season 2 speculations. I want to give a huge shout out to Barb, because I also have to say,
Barb, the breakout character.
I know, because I have to say, there were also people cosplaying as her at FlameCon, for which I never geek out.
No, it was really like one girl cosplaying as her who nailed it so well that she became one of the most talked about people at the convention.
For the longest time, she was like my Facebook cover photo, my picture with her. But I also saw her posing with other people on their Facebook pages. So, and I have to say, that definitely was a really great thing. She was another really great character, because, like, even though she wasn't a main character, I just completely felt like like I would have been Barb, or Barb would have been my friend in
Yeah.
high school. But that character, I mean, she just so encapsulated like a certain moment in history and like such a certain part of like my own childhood that it was like, I was like, wow, I can't believe, like they did such an amazing job with her, and it's sad because it was like her moment was so brief, but
Yeah.
but
although I've heard
like,
that the mystery of what happened to her or what did happen to her is going to be a significant part of the next season. So
well,
even though she's
yeah.
gone, she's not forgotten. Well, yeah, I mean, we're expecting we're going to see more of the Upside Down because you really only barely saw it in the first season. And they're being cagey about 11, but we all know 11 is coming back. There's no way 11's not gone. It wasn't like the sheriff was leaving those Eggos in the woods for nobody. He was leaving them for 11 because she is coming back and she's going to have such a great romance with that boy. It's going to be so nice.
I almost kind of wonder if she's like in the the Upside Down somewhere, like ruling it now, or like she finds a way to tame those, the tulip head thing.
If anybody could, it would be her. I mean,
but
she's a badass.
She totally is a badass. I know the next season's going to jump to 84, so I almost wonder like if there's going to be more seasons after that, if they'll go through the whole 80s, which, just let me say, Netflix, feel free to do that. I think it would be awesome
we're very
to take a sci-fi horror tour.
Well, apparently the creators had considered jumping ahead significantly to like when the kids were teens or adults, and I'm so glad they didn't do that because, I mean, those kids are such a great part of the show that I think they should stick with them as long as they can. And yeah, it really was the breakout thing of the summer, and for me it kind of summed up, I mean, you know, to get more into like what was going on in the real world, I feel like this was a terrible summer in a lot of ways. Just awful things happened. The world just felt really destroyed and messed up. And you know, one really good thing I remember from this summer was Stranger Things and the way that it just captivated people. And I think people needed it. I think they needed a good story, a good positive group of characters to root for. I mean, it really provided some solace that was much needed.
Go. Let's get out of here. Let's go. Go. Yeah, that's right. You better run. She's our friend and she's crazy.
Well, if you have any thoughts on any of the shows or movies we talked about or anything that we didn't include, please hit us up in the comments. And until next time, stay scared.